Uh, Again, welcome back to you guys for the final session of the final day of your developer training. And this is Yaswanth again. And
Yaswanth, I know there is a lot of expectation on LWC. If it spills over a few more minutes, I think our audience will be willing to wait and listen to you. So please don't cut short your presentation.
sure, Andy, thank you. Yeah, and today we will be going to discuss or see about what is LWC. So most of you heard or LWC is one of the greatest and hottest topic in the developer aspect. So, and one of the focus areas during the PD1 exam and understanding the easy of essence. So even there are a lot of requirements even coming from our clients when compared with the traditional Visual Force development. So what is LWC? I mean Lightning Web Component. So I'm skipping these few slides. And so what is LWC? So let's get started over here. LWC is, I'm referring few times like LWC is like nothing but Lightning Web Component. It's a modern web standard. So if you like whatever uh, Praveen given an overview of how systems are evolving and how systems are working currently. And the same way the browsers also gets updated to support with the same systems. So previously the Lightning Web Component supports with a better performance, and it has all the modern web standards. Modern web standards like the how Praveen like navigator or given overview on custom elements like our componentization. And another thing is mobile first approach. So, and coming to web standards, there is something called custom elements. So previously in ECMAScript 5, you don't have an ability to create your own custom elements. So for that, now currently browsers are supporting even the custom elements, and Shadow DOM is the one of the main feature of the modern web standards. And ES6, and if you someone already have an idea about or you are already working in the JavaScript related areas, you might have already heard about ES6 and ES7. So those are all are in the Lightning Web Component, and it's already compatible. So far we have seen about VF Page and about Aura. So what happened to Aura if it LWC comes into the picture? So same thing, it's already compatible with Aura and easy of use. So now in all our mind today we seen about like a Visual Force page and Lightning component and Lightning Web Component. So why Salesforce introduced a Lightning Web Component right now? So let's see that. So if I take you guys back to the 5 years or 4 years, 6 years back, this is how 2014 web stack is like Praveen said, all our whatever we are writing is, it's by end of the day it's going to execute in the browser. So this is how the web standards previously we had in the 2014 earlier days. So we have only ECMAScript 5, and we have standard events like button click events and on chain like that, and standard elements and few rendering. So what's missing here? If you see here, there is no data services, there is no component model and templates. If you guys might have already worked in like Angular or React kind of things, you might have already heard about templates and modules. So these are main two modules of or main topics for any of the framework. So to fill all these kind of gaps, few already languages becoming as a framework, like you might have already about React, Angular, Aura, and AMD Common. So all these are to fill these gaps in the web standards. These frameworks become popular, and they started doing their own development from the scratch. And lack of rendering optimization, maybe if you see like delaying of the UI whenever you're rendering in the browser, or it's not even supporting the mobile. So all these like we have in the 2014 times. So now let's see what we had in the 2019. So this is where, if you see the web standards, they evolved a lot when it's compared with how machines are evolving daily, like our computers or PCs. So the same browser also need to support the machine. So that's why web standards also get updated. If you see ECMAScript 7 is the latest or JavaScript update. And if you do see here, there are Shadow DOM as well as standard elements and templates and custom elements. So all these came into the picture, and web standards, it's the web browser wherever the application is running is going to support our you don't need to write any code to support all this. So then framework's job is becoming less. Most of the logics are handling by the browser itself. So what framework you need to do is data services. So each and every framework, they should have their own data service and UI components. So if you see here, so more standards, and browser is taking care of all your code instead of you writing from the scratch. And in that case, if your framework is involved between the browser and your application, what will happen is the browser will understand your code, so framework will convert to the browser understandability. And because of all these, it will take some a bit time rather than the normal what you are viewing currently. So that's why 2019 the web standards are get updated, and they have bring all they are handling most of our scenarios what we had like in 2014. So let's have a comparison here what we have in LWC. So whatever you're seeing in the left hand side is LWC standard web standard stack, and what we Salesforce providing here. So as you guys already known about the Salesforce is the main one, and one of the main is security. I'm sorry, yeah, security. And the lightning data service is something which Praveen already talked about, like to bring the data without any Salesforce without any Apex control interaction. And base lightning components, Salesforce will provide like 70 plus standard components where you don't need to write any code. You just utilize the component and you can use of that component here. So let's see the evaluation of Salesforce. So most of our developers who are already working in from past 5 or 10 years old might have known what is S control and what is VF page. I think already discussed about VF page. So in 2010 up to till 2010 we have something called S control, which I didn't even discuss today. So where we can customize our UI. Then after 2010 there is something called which we already discussed about VF page in 2006. Then after we are the Praveen said in the single page application, each and every time VF page will deal with rendering of server, and it will go each and every for server actions. So then Aura came into the picture. Whenever the web standards gets updated, Aura came into the picture, and Salesforce started developing their own framework. And most of our code is handling in the JavaScript. Then for server actions and for server interactions, we are dealing with the server. And 2018, like November, December days, LWC is the came into the picture, and this is one of the hottest topic and one of the developer friendly environment where you are dealing, even you are working with multiple frameworks like React, or you already worked in React or Angular, so it can be easily understandable by any of the developers. That is the one main feature in the LWC. And let's see how Aura versus LWC. So far Praveen discussed about LC, which is nothing but lightning component, which is built on top of Aura framework. So what will happen to the Aura framework now? Will it go away, or will Salesforce will get rid of support for Aura? No, because if you see, ECMAScript 5 is in supporting in Aura, and ECMAScript 7 is a JavaScript standard which is currently available in 2019. So whatever we already discussed about in last earlier slides, so all these are built in Aura. Whatever you're seeing in the blue color are built on top of browser standards, which is built by Salesforce in Aura framework. Whatever you are seeing in the light orange color is supporting by browser. So previously we are Salesforce is handling take care of all all these actions, excuse me, yeah, on top of Aura framework, on top of web standard. So that is built by Aura framework. So now browser is taking care of all these actions, and our job is Salesforce job is just to take care of few things like security, data service, and base lightning component. So now the UI rendering is becoming very faster, and the server interactions and rendering of the data in the DOM is becoming very faster when compared with Aura. So what will happen to Aura? Can we able to invoke LWC in the Aura? Yes. So you can even write your LWC, and you can also inject that LWC in the lightning component, and it's interoperable. You can even also have lightning component, lightning web component in the single page itself. Even end user or a developer will not able to identify what is the lag in the LC or what is the lag in the LWC. So it's interoperable and it's coexistence. Aura is much faster than VF page because it's evolved in 2014. As you remember, the evolution of UI, and LWC is much faster than Aura because of web browser is taking care of most of our things. So before we start how to develop LWC, there are some prerequisites to develop. Neither like Aura component or neither like a VF page, you couldn't develop any of the code directly in your Salesforce org. You should use any of the tools like either VS Code or IntelliJ or uh, Eclipse. You have to use some of the tool. VS Code, Visual Studio Code is the one which Salesforce recommended, which has all the latest updates with the Salesforce, and JDK, which is you might have already seen, and CLI is the main powerful tool which is built by Salesforce to deal with to interact with using commands. So let's see how we can build this. So I'm not currently dealing with all these installation. Currently I installed Visual Studio Code in my machine, and I set up uh, I set up one project here. I'll just walk you through how to set up a project. So in the Windows or Mac, there is something called command palette. If you click on here, so yeah, before I think I'll go. So in the Visual Studio Code, after you install Visual Studio Code, you have to add these two extensions, which are Salesforce extension pack is the required one to connect with the Salesforce, and Salesforce Lightning Code snippets is the recommended one to get much familiar with the developer for using while developing code. So let's see how I install Visual Studio Code. If you see in here, left hand side, there is something called extensions. If you click on this, you will see all the list of extensions. So you can select Salesforce extension pack here. So which has all the Salesforce recommended extensions, and which I like, I gave an idea on Salesforce Lightning Code snippets, which is easy for developers. And after that, you have to install CLI. So now we have been ready with all the setup and all the stuff. Now how to create a project here. So before you're starting your development, you have to create your project, and you have to connect your project with your uh, Salesforce organization. So in the view, like as I said previously, command palette, in the Windows or in the Mac, you can use Command Shift P or Control Shift P, and here type create project with manifest. So it will ask you whether which template you can choose standard, and you can give the project name, which will directly, for time saving, I created a project which will create a project for Salesforce project, which is a DX project. You might have already heard about this DX. If not, DX is something Salesforce introduced recently with Lightning. So where you can changing the way of your development and way of your deployment. So here you create a project, and here what it will give you is, it will create a project with a DX structure. If you see the left hand side, all these are in the DX structure. So now if you see the Force app, something called Force app, it is the project which I underneath this Force app main default, all our Salesforce belongings are Salesforce related modules are here. So now what we need to do is we create a project. We have to connect our project with Salesforce org, right? So because previously you can directly, you're developing directly in the Lightning developer console in the Salesforce org. So now how can I connect my Salesforce org from the Visual Studio Code? Same thing, go to the command palette, and here type authorize an org, and here you will see command which is already listed out here. So you need to choose which org, whether you are dealing with a production or sandbox or custom UI. For now, I'm choosing project default, and you have to give the alias name for the org. So which will take you to the, let me provide you one here, dev training. Demo training. So if you see here, yeah, this will navigate back us to the Salesforce login screen where we usually used to log in, and here you can use give username and password, and that's it. You don't need to have any Salesforce your org after that, until and unless you want to see your output. So for now, I just already created a project and I connected with my org. So whatever commands, either you can even communicate with your server or Salesforce organization using commands, or you can even deal with the UI. So here, if you see my whatever org is connected, it will be listed out here. This is org which I connected previously, which is dev training. So now my org is set up, and I set up all my entire project. Now I need to write my code. So if you expand this in the Force app main default, you do see something called Aura, which Praveen talked about already, and LWC. So this is where we'll deal with. So here in the LWC, right click on LWC project, LWC folder, and choose create lightning web component. So whatever you're doing, previously you create lightning component from the developer console, here you will deal from here. So let's click on create lightning web component. I'm choosing the same file like hello world, and you have to choose your path. So I'm choosing the same default path as LWC, and that's it. It will create a lightning web component project for component for you. And if you expand this, you will see only two modules, two files underneath this. So this is my component. Underneath this, I'm having .html and .js and meta file. Let's talk about this later. First, let's see what is HTML. So if you remember, if you recall in the lightning component, we do see a lot of files like SVG and all this stuff. We can also have all these here, but for for our development purpose, we can only have HTML and JS. Until and unless it's required, you can have here. So let's talk about HTML. HTML, which is nothing but like how we have a Visual Force page, Apex page, root tag, as well as in the Lightning component, we have Aura component. Same thing in the LWC, we have a something called root tag called template, which is nothing but if you already have worked in any of the frameworks or any of the native languages, you might have already seen this template tag. So what we have in the JS, let's open JS. So if you already discussed about like having the custom elements and importing all the stuff. So if you see, LWC is the Salesforce provider's inbuilt functionality, and through this statement, import lightning element is the variable I'm having here from LWC, which is LWC is a Salesforce standard package. They are having all the standards, all the, we don't need to build each and every code for this. We just import here, and this will have a lightning element. So previously in 2014 times, we don't have any class in the to develop in the JavaScript. So in earlier days of 2019, they have introduced this class having in the JavaScript, and here I'm exporting a class, and these two are keywords and class. This is my class name, like how I have for lightning component, and extends my lightning element. So this will have all the basics of where I can leverage the Salesforce standard providing inbuilt features. So let's talk about this. And now I just have a JS file. So this is, I didn't even create any of these files. Salesforce will take care of this to create HTML or to create JS. So now I just want to print a hello world message to our clients. So I'm declaring a variable here, greeting message. Hello all, welcome to the world of LWC. So that's it. So now I want to use this, like if you remember in the lightning component VF page, we have in the VF page we have to use getter setter. In the lightning component we have to use value provider. So if I want to print this message in the UI, simply use data binding expressions. If you remember, recall in the lightning component, we're having data binding expressions, and let's have the same variable, whatever you declared here, and that's it. So to see this, I have to deploy this to my org. Before I have to deploy, I just created for demo purpose, I just created one application. So this is my application. Sorry, hello world. Yeah. And I copied this, I save this, and now what I need to do is, so all of your changes, whatever you have done, it still resides in your local. It's not even deployed to your org. Now what you need to do? So first, where is my lightning component? Here. So right click on this component, and if you do see here, deploy source to your org. Let's click on this. and this will take a couple of seconds. So this will run a command behind the scene. So you can even deal with a command or okay. For time being, I'm just not running out here. I already created one component here. I deployed to my org. So if you see here, let me open the component which I created here. So this is let's not bother about this. See this greeting message, and I just concatenated. I just added one hello message here, and I'm using the same message in my HTML. That's it. I'm not doing anything here. So that will render up you here. So this is how you will declare a variables, and you will be using these variables in your Aura component. So now Praveen showed you like one quick demo, like whenever you're changing in the input, it's auto reflecting in your uh, screen underneath that. So that is something called value provider and data binding. So Lightning, unfortunately, Lightning component, Lightning web component will not support that. To do support for that, you have to write your own code. So before that, let me give you an overview on here. What is properties we having in LWC? So there are two types of properties we have in Lightning web component. One is public and private. Underneath private, we have like a track. So track was currently deprecated in the latest release, so which is already reactive, and API. So let's see whatever I declared the variables here. So this greeting is a reactive property. That's why whenever you added a text, it's get reflected in your HTML, right? So this is a reactive property, and I didn't declare any of thing here. I didn't even declare track. So previously we need to declare as a track. So Salesforce is currently supporting even the local variables as reactive properties. So you don't need to bother about the decorator here. And yeah, that's it. I just rendered a greeting message here. Now let's get back to our old scenario where whenever I'm typing here in this input, whenever I'm typing here, I need to render the same message underneath that. So like how Praveen demoed to you in the Lightning component, if at all you want to achieve that, what you need to do is, so let me show you. This is the Lightning input. As I said earlier, we having standard components where you don't need to bother or you don't need to write single piece of code. You just simply use that particular tag. So Lightning input is the component provided by Salesforce. So I'm giving the label and I'm just providing the required. So this is the same standard native HTML development, and I'm having something called on change. So what I'm doing is whenever this text was typed or whenever the text was changing. So yeah, this is the method is calling up. Let me check. Yeah, this is the method is calling up. So yeah, we have, as we already discussed or as we already seen about few slides, we have something called events. So these are standard events provided by the browser. So I'm having event.target.value. What it will do is it's getting the value whatever I'm typing from the input box and assign into the text, just a reactive property variable which is input text. And with this I'm rendering over here. Let's not bother about this up for now. So this is the variable I'm just using. So unlike like Lightning component, you don't need to provide any value providers. You just simply within the expressions, you will be providing your variable name. So if you do see here in the on change itself, I'm not even calling like how we do in the Lightning component. So I'm not calling with the c dot method name. I'm just calling a method and without any double quotes here. If you do see here, I'm just giving an expression, and then inside the expression, I'm providing the method name. So render message is my method. And here I'm having a Salesforce browser standard event. I'm getting the current type value and I'm assigning to the input text variable. So this input text is the something where which resides here. So that's why whenever I'm typing here, the value, whatever I'm passing here, will get call over here on each and every button click on each and every key press, this method will gets called and it will gets reflect assigned to the input text and it will render over our DOM. So this is called reactive property. So whenever you make changes, that will automatically auto renders here. You don't need to write any of the code to change this. And so let's back to slide. So now, so far we have seen how to declare a variables and how we can render a messages and structure of a Lightning Web Component. So now the most important thing is you want to invoke your Apex class, which is nothing but a server. Okay, how you can call your Apex class from the LWC? There are two ways of invoking Apex class from the LWC. One is called wire property or wire decorator, and another one is imperative. So let's see this. So here in my JS, if at all you are using any of the decorators like this, like either wire or API decorator, so you have to first import those here. Then only you are able to access these. If at all you are not importing here, you will see exception here itself. So supported decorators should be imported from LWC. So now I imported a wire decorator here, which is nothing but a decorator where you can directly call the server and you don't need to write any of the code. So now what we need to do is I imported a wire attribute. So now I declare, let me open one of my Apex class, which I already written, which is a demo class. So you can even create Apex class from here itself. So I created an Apex class, and here, like if at all you are invoking your Lightning component, you have to mention at or enabled decorator here, and then only you can able to invoke your Lightning component method from the Lightning component Lightning Web Component. Same like Lightning component, you have to add the or enabled decorator here, and I'm just written a get contacts method which will querying the list of contacts in my org and limiting to 10. So now what I'm using here is let me jump back to my demo. So here the power of extension, which I already told you, like this Salesforce Lightning code snippets. You don't need to remember all the code. If you add this extension, it will automatically add, show you the syntax or sample code. Let's see this. So I want to call a Apex method using the decorator wire. So just add wire here. So if you see here, there are, it listed out so many methods standardly. So what is wire data? And if you see here, there is something called wire with param and without param. For our demo purpose, I'm just using without param. So let's click on this. So it will give you the syntax. You don't need to write, you don't need to remember all the code. So that is the power of that extension. You don't need to remember code. So here, if you see, it accepts a method name, and this is just simple a variable name or method name, whatever you can even call. So these two are callbacks. So this is error callback and this is success callback, success variable. So what if you have any error in your server callback, it will get over to here. So that's why if you see here, there is something called else if, whatever the value, or if at all you have any error, this will get over to here. And if you have any success, it will add over here. So as long as I already have a method, so yeah. Now we have wire decorator syntax. Now I want to invoke my Apex class, whatever I have written here, from Lightning Web Component. So for that, again, you have to use import statement. So let's type here import. If you type here import itself, that will prompt you list of collections already we have. Import Salesforce Apex. I think, yeah. So if you type IMP, this is having with IMP, and Salesforce Apex class. So there is something called Salesforce Apex class. Let's click on this. It will give you the syntax. You don't need to remember all the stuff. So this is the variable, how you are importing the Lightning element. You have to use the same variable, like the same, you have to use the one variable. And here, this is the syntax you have to invoke your Apex class. At Salesforce is the extension Apex. This is the controller name, and this is your method name. In our example, so if I already have the code here, so this is the method I have to call. So from this Apex class, demo class is my Apex class, get contacts is my Apex method. So I'm importing the same here. So now my entire import statements is underneath this. So I have to pass this get contacts to the my wire service. So let's have the same example. Get contacts. I'm using the same variable, whatever I'm having here. And I'm just assigning the success callback and error callback. And I'm just printing the result here. And I'm just printing the error here. So whenever you're just, you have to keep in mind, whenever you're dealing with at wire service, whatever the Apex class whatever the Apex method you are using, it should be catchable equal to true. Means that when whatever you are returning here, you shouldn't manipulate anything over here. So that's why you have to give catchable equal to true, and you cannot or you shouldn't make any changes after this success callback. So let me quickly show you this. So here, yeah, this is my result. After this is whenever you have written contacts, this will get over here. You couldn't modify any of the data, whatever you're having here, whenever you're dealing with a wire service. So what I'm doing here is now I need to render all these contacts in my UI. So that's why I created one reactive property here, which is a local variable, or you can even call, and I'm assigning the data, whatever I'm returning to result variable. So let's go to the HTML. So whatever Praveen showed previously with the Aura iteration, we do have same thing kind of for each in the Lightning Web Component. It accepts only two parameters. The syntax should be like this: template and for each, and here it accepts the list of collection, list or collection, and for item is iterator. So this is simply looks like this for like what we used to do in Apex, right? CON. This is my list of contacts. Okay, contact list. So same thing here. Contact list is nothing but here my result, and CON is nothing but here my contact. So this is iterating. I'm iterating through all my contacts, and I'm having the local variable. And another thing we have to remember here is the key. Whenever you're dealing with the template for each, and whenever you're using iterator here, you have to provide the key, because as long as you remember Salesforce LWC deals with, it is more reactive and more interactive. So whenever you're changing a separate value in this list item, it will not refresh the entire list. So let's say I'm having list of 10 items. I change it in the 5th index position, 5th item from my list. So what LWC will do here is, it will not again change the or iterate through entire collection to change the value. Like let's say I'm having name as training 1. So after that, some on button click, I change it to training 2. Salesforce will not, LWC will not iterate through all the list to change this training 2. So it will directly update this training 2 with help of this key. So that's why you have to, this is a mandatory whenever you're using template. So you have to provide the key here. And here I'm just listing out the contact ID, and let's see this output here. So I already deployed one application here. So I'm rendering this Lightning component using Lightning application. So this is my code previously. Yeah. So this is my demo LWC Lightning web component I'm using in the Aura application, and I'm previewing over here. So that's it. So let me get back to this. Yeah. So here I'm iterating through all my list of elements. This is I'm having only contact ID here. I didn't even print any of the name or email. So if you see here, the wire method is called. Let me refresh this. Here we go. I'm bringing all the contacts and with a limit of 10, and this rendering using Lightning template for each. So I have a console here too. If at all, if you have any exceptions, so if you see, I printed a console for array. So whatever we are getting the data. So you can simply see over here. This I'm returning list of contacts here. So this way you can even simply call Apex without writing much code in Lightning web component level. So as we see previously, we do see two types of server invocations from Lightning web component. One is why, so far we did see that, and now another one is imperative. So you want to manipulate some data which is written by Salesforce, which is written by your Apex method. How can you develop your code, or how can you call your server using imperative method? So same thing. Let me go back to my Apex class. So here I developed another method called get accounts, and you don't need to provide catchable equal to true because you're not calling from wire service. This should only required when you're calling from wire service. And here I'm querying the list of accounts and limiting to 5. I'm just returning the list of accounts. Let me back to the JS. Like how we did for the contacts. So you want to import the contact, same way you want to import the accounts too. So whatever the method you're invoking, you should import that. So I'm having demo class, and underneath that I'm having get accounts method. So with this get accounts method, I'm importing into one variable. So here, this is the variable. Okay. So what I'm doing here is, whenever on click of this button, I want to query accounts in my org with limit of 5. On load of the page, we are rendering only contacts. Now on click of the button, I need to render only accounts. So here we go. If you see the ID, it starts with 001, which is account ID. So how I'm doing here? So for that, as I told you, like previously, we have a lightning, one of the component is the lightning button. It's a standard inbuilt component. You don't need to you don't need to write any of the code to handle this. Just whatever the required parameters here, I'm passing label as get accounts, and I have on click. So unlike HTML, you shouldn't need to pass any method name to with double quotes. You can simply within the curly brace, you just simply call your Apex method. So that will invoke your method. So I'm having query accounts method. Whenever you click on this button, this gets called. So let's see this method. So this is my button click method, query accounts. So whenever I click on this get accounts, this is gets called. Here, if you remember, I imported get accounts into the get accounts variable. It don't need to be the same name. What is your Apex method name? You can call any, you can write any, you can give any name to your import method. So I'm having get accounts here. So what I'm doing here is, so the same like how I showed you for the wire, let's have the same code with extension. So you have to call Apex method using imperative. So type Apex. So if you see in the list, which is suggesting by extension, Apex with param, Apex without param. In the right hand side, if you see LWC Apex imperative. So I need to call the method using imperative method. So for now, I'm dealing with only without params. You can even pass your params. So that's it. It will give you the method name. This one you need to replace, and it will give you the success callback. If at all, if your result don't have any exception, this will get called. Like this is like a then function you might have already heard about in one of our native JavaScript languages, and this is catch. I think we are running late, but apologies for that. But I'm trying to cover a few things. Another one is catch. So if at all you have any exceptions, this will get called here. So what you need to do is you just simply add get accounts here. So what I need to do, replace this with get accounts. I'm sorry, I think I didn't copy this. And let's have this. Get accounts. That's it. This will get, if at all you have success block, this is the result is the variable which holds the success of your methods. And I'm assigning to the result variable. I think you can get rid of this too. I already prepared a few things. So this is my method, and the result I'm assigning to the result variable, which is already a reactive property. And error so far so in the constructor wise, in the page load, this method will get called. Then we are assigning the result to the contact list here. On button click, I'm assigning the same result to the same variable. That's why you are not seeing the contacts on page load. I'm refreshing again. Here you see the ID it starts with 003, which is contact ID. Whenever I click on button, I'm again invoking imperative method, and I'm calling my Apex class, and I'm getting the accounts. If you see, it's changed with 001, which is nothing but account ID. It's a Salesforce standard ID key prefix, and that's it. So this is how you can easily interact with server. You don't need to bother about no code, or you don't need to remember all the syntax. With the help of extensions, you can simply play with this. So far we covered how to interact with the server. So now we retrieve the data from the Salesforce. How can I create, or how can I manipulate data in the Salesforce, right? So for now, I'm not going to the code for now. I'm just rendering, showing the demo. So I created one tab here, and I just added one component. So if you guys recall, Praveen showed us using Lightning recorded form to create records without any help of Apex class. So I'm using the same. Let me create one account here. Demo training account 2. I'm creating an account here. See, the account is created. Let me back to the account. So here we go. Account is created with the name, whatever we have. You can even find here, I'm populating the ID after the created record ID. So I'm creating this record using the data service, which I already talked about in my earlier slides, which is one of the powerful tool in the Salesforce. You don't need to write any of your Apex class. So you can create your records. You can even get records from the data service itself. And yeah, so if you guys recall in the last slides of Praveen, he's explaining a few things about how to communicate between the events. So you want, let's say you want to communicate between the child components or sibling components, or which are not even having any relationship. So we do have the same thing in the LWC. So if at all, if the component is in the containment hierarchy, like parent is, child is inside the parent component, and if it is in the containment hierarchy, you can use methods like how Praveen showed. The same method, you can call the child methods from the parent itself. So how I want to communicate with the parent from the child component. So you can use custom event, which is a Salesforce, which is browser standard events concept, and you can use the same events to communicate with the parents. So now you want to communicate between two components, which two components don't have any relationship. So that's where it's publish subscriber model, which we used to call pub sub model, which already Praveen discussed in his lightning component session with application event, which is nothing but application event lightning component. Here we used to call pub sub model. So with this way, we can even communicate with the events. I think, yeah. Before I conclude this, if at all you're facing any difficulties while setting up all this stuff, and you want to play with the Lightning web component without setting up all this stuff, we Salesforce providing few things. Yeah. So here we go, and I'm simply let, apologize for running late, guys. I'll quickly wrap up within 2 minutes. So type Lightning web component library here. So you can click on the first one, which is Salesforce official documentation. Here you can find all the standard all the standard components which I was talking about. Like we have 70 plus components. If you do see, we have two sections: Lightning web component and Aura. So you can find all the tabs here. Let's say we discussed about Lightning button, right? If you remember. So if you click on this, here it will give you an example. What is the syntax of button, how you can play with this. What is the great with our Salesforce is, it will even allowing us to here make changes directly without even saving it. So let's see, there is button called base right here. I'm changing this to demo button. See this, it's changing directly here. So Salesforce documentation is that much powerful. You don't need to remember all the code, and you don't need to directly play in the component itself. You can play here itself. So this is one area, and you can see the JavaScript of this too. Whenever, let's say, you click on any button, this method will get called. You can find all the standard Salesforce supporting tags here. And same thing like how Praveen showed, we have the same aura tags here too. Now, if you want to start developing, development of Lightning Web Component, navigate to the developer guide. Here you have all the official documentation of the Lightning Web Component. Just go with this Lightning Web Component documentation. You will have full maximum of knowledge and or maximum overview what is Lightning Web Component. And there is something called Locker Console. This we are not currently talking about. This is another interesting thing in the Salesforce documentation is Playground. So this is where you don't need to create any setup in your Visual Studio Code. You can simply add your code here itself. Salesforce will take care of this Playground. That's why the name tab itself is having a playground. So let's see this. Having welcome to the Lightning Web Components Playground. I'm changing this. Where is this? Where is this? Here we go. Welcome. Sorry, I think this is having in the title. Let's have write JavaScript here, right? I'm changing this. Welcome to the sorry for the typos. World of LWC. See, on type itself, how the component reference is changing, it will reflect automatically here. And you can even download your samples, and you can even run this from here, and you can save these samples with connection of your own. And you can even add your own components here directly. So before you're giving a try from the setting up of all the stuff, give a try from the Playground, and let's explore whatever we're having in the Salesforce, and then you can start using from the Visual Studio Code. And lastly, so far we've seen like we have Visual Force Page, Lightning Component and Lightning Web Component. Lightning Web Component has a certain limited features where it's not fully supporting, like it's a newborn baby for the Salesforce. So you want to understand the Lightning Web Component, Lightning Component. If at all you are not going to achieve with the Lightning Web Component, you can achieve the same thing in Lightning Component. Whenever you're solutioning this, you have to understand the Lightning Component too. So few constraints in the Lightning Component too. Few things we can't even achieve with the Lightning Component. So that you need to know about Visual Force Page too. That's why we had a full pack of Lightning. We have page Lightning Web Component. So as a developer, you should know all these. But so far, like most of our clients is getting requirement only using the Lightning Web Component. So try to start playing with this. And with that, I think I can conclude my session. Thanks for staying late and listening very patiently to us. And I would like to thank you all guys and listening to us in the Sunday, and you're spending your full weekend with us. Thank you guys.